Alrighty, hello everyone. We're starting this first tutorial out as game creation in JavaScript. I want to start this out by saying I will be posting these on my YouTube channel, which is, I believe it's Violet Syntax, that or it's Pirate Girl 9000. I can't remember quite which one it is, but it's one of them. Additionally, you should be able to see all of my projects on my GitHub, which is right here, Pirate Girl 9000, and it has this as the profile picture. I also do most of my coding inside of GitHub when it comes to things outside of just Python. So I'll be mostly using the GitHub interface, but the GitHub interface is based off Visual Studio Code. So if you have VSC, you can pretty much follow along just fine with some of the import packages that I might import. So to get this started, we need to first start creating a canvas for which our game can be built on. Now, there's technically three parts. This is not just going to be a JavaScript tutorial, because in order to actually start drawing things to our JavaScript, we need some sort of web page or something to display it on, which is where HTML comes in. You can see I've also added a style.css that's cascading style sheets to this project. We likely may not be using it, but maybe we will in case we decide to center stuff or edit the background of the entire document. It's really not necessary. Really, we're just going to be focusing on HTML and JavaScript with a heavy focus on JavaScript. Now to start this out, we need to first create our HTML document. Now typical naming structure goes like this, where we have index.html, script.js, and style.css. For index.html, this means when your web page is loaded, it will take the user straight to the index.html page, which is why whenever you go to a website, say GitHub, it takes me straight to the index/html. Or maybe not, but most websites are like that. Anyways, let's get started with our HTML index page. The first thing we need to do is understand the syntax a little bit here. HTML mostly uses these angular brackets to define elements. An element is basically an object if you're familiar with object-oriented programming. In this case, you won't need to know too much HTML, just the very, very basics. To start an HTML file, we use opening angular bracket, exclamation mark, doc type, all caps, space, lowercase, HTML. This declares that this document will be an HTML document. From there, we need to create the HTML tag, and you can see it finished it off here with a /HTML. Any element in HTML, with some exceptions, is ended with a slash and then the name of the element type. So here we're creating an HTML element. Inside of this HTML element, we have a few different things we can create. We can create a head. This is basically the top of your page. This can be multiple different things. If we see right here, we can see it says Index Librorum Prohibitorum, which is quite a strange project name, but that's how random generation with GitHub projects works. But this is actually our title element on our HTML page. So if you actually go into head and you do title, and in most cases it will automatically close it for you, just a nice thing to have an IDE, and then we enter something into here, then it will be displayed up here when we actually visit this web page. Now, if I were to change it right now into here, it wouldn't change this because this is the IDE, the integrated development environment, and not the actual project we're making. We're writing a web page inside of a web page is what I'm trying to say. So it's not going to immediately transfer over. So for this, we're just going to name it game, simply enough. You don't need, like most programming languages, you need quotation marks around strings. In the case of HTML, it's very loose with its regulations. In fact, if you wanted, you could type straight into here, and that would just show up on the web page. Now I'm going to go ahead and add something to my project here via the extensions, and it's live server. Now this live server is just really useful for testing your code out if it's an HTML code, because you can just push things in there and then run it. So here, now that I have it installed, we can see down here in this bottom right corner, we have the Go Live button. I click that, I give it a second, and we're connecting to the forwarded port, and we should see a basic web page. Now there's nothing in here yet, because we don't have anything, except for one thing. We have that title, which is game, which we can see appearing up here, just like I said it would. That's what our title element does. Now, with this open, it will automatically update as I add things to it. So we can see, refreshes, there we go, AFSDF. Now this, writing just random letters is akin to doing P. P stands for paragraph, and it's basically just basic text. No special formatting or anything. But we don't need to know about that. Really, all we need to know about right now is creating our canvas and adding our script. So to add a canvas, we're going to create a body element. This body just stores the body of your web page. And then in here, we're going to create a canvas. Now we have a canvas here, and we probably can't see it yet, and I just ripped down that thing. We can't see the canvas yet, but it is indeed here. It's right here across the web page. You just don't see it because we don't have anything special for it. But if I go ahead and go in here and do a little bit of forced CSS code, embedded CSS code, we can do background black. Background black. I forget how to do it specifically here. I think that'll work. There you go. Now you can see that's our canvas. It's black. Now we probably won't end up doing this, keeping this background, so we're going to delete that style. And what you saw me do here with this is just editing the properties of the element directly in here. And when I use the style tag, I'm basically referring that I want to use CSS code to edit it. You can do this both inside of the HTML code. You can actually fit all of your scripting inside of HTML as well, but usually I like to put it into different files rather than all in one place. The last thing we really need to do here for this canvas is add a property called ID and set it equal to something. Doesn't matter what it is, just when you get over to your script, you need to refer to it by the same name. So in this case, we're just going to call it display. And that does need to be in quotation marks because it's an ID, an identifier. Then, after we get that done, we need to import our script, our JavaScript script. That way it gets run when the web page is run. To do that, we do script, and if it's an external script like it is where this file is outside of it, we do src equals, and then the name of our file, which in this case is script.js. And then we close it, and it'll automatically add that /script at the end. And now we've pretty much got the bulk of it done. We have a canvas, we have a script. That's really all the HTML you need to know for this singular part. Now we move into the script. First thing we need to do when considering this script is we need to actually get some of those elements from HTML, specifically this canvas. Now in this tutorial, we're going to be talking about creating 2D games specifically, as they're a lot easier than actual 3D games, and if you want to do 3D games, it's better to do that sort of stuff in an engine like Unity or Unreal Engine, or any of the other game-making engines are out there. But if we're wanting to do it raw from code, this is how we do it. So we go over to our script, and we need to get that canvas. We need to get that canvas element. To do that, we just need to declare a variable. In JavaScript, variables can be declared in a few different ways. You can do the var keyword, you can use let, or if you're declaring a constant, you can do const. Constants, remember, they are immutable values. They cannot be changed once they are initialized. So, some cases that's a good thing. In fact, in this case, it might be a good thing because we're not actually changing it. The let keyword is basically like it declares a variable, but it's set within the current scope. So if you're in a function or something and you use the let keyword, that variable won't be accessible outside of that function, which is why we typically use let over var, because we prefer to have our data be as efficient as possible. So we're going to create a constant here, and it's going to be the display. And we're going to set it equal to document.get element by ID, and then we're going to pass the ID of display. In JavaScript, all statements are terminated with the semicolon character. Now let's see what this is actually doing. It's referring to the document that's calling it. So in this case, our document that's calling it calls it right here, and it's index.html. And from this document that's making a call to the script, it is getting an element by its ID, and that ID being display. So if we look back here, what do you know? Our canvas element has an ID of display. So from this, we are grabbing our canvas element. Now we're going to move forward and we're going to take a look at how do we, because while we currently have the canvas, it's still not quite ready for us to use. We need to get the 2D rendering context of this display. Usually, you just write this as CTX, that's commonplace. So we do constant context is equal to display, which as we know is this document.getElement by ID. You could just put this all on one line if you know your programming well enough, but in this case we'll just split it into two. Display.getContext. Alright, hold on. I'm not sure why that's not showing up with IntelliSense. Okay, no, I'm right. It just wasn't showing up with IntelliSense. So in here, we need to specify our context. In this case, it's 2D. And now we essentially have a way to draw to the canvas. Now, just to show that we do, I'm going to create just a very basic rectangle. So for this, I'm going to say, we'll say fill rect. And first we're going to do context dot fill style, and we're going to set it equal to red. Then we're going to do a fill rect. We're going to give it coordinates of 0, 0, a width of 20, and a height of 20. And now we're going to go over here. We're going to refresh the tab, and there we go. We've drawn a rectangle. Super simple to understand and see how that works, right? All we're doing is setting a style to fill our rectangle with, or to do any sort of filling, because you can fill circles, you can fill all sorts of polygons, and then you just do context.fillRect. So our context refers to the context of this canvas. Now, before we wrap up here, let's just keep in mind all of the stuff we've done so far. This is just to set up your project. And while it can be a bit mouthy at first, eventually you get in the habit of doing it. All of these tutorials will be uploaded to my YouTube channel, so you can go check those out whenever you want. That way you have access to them at all times. If you have any questions, please let me know and I'll go into it more. And with that said, I'll see you all later.